so everybody understands about the tri-Y header setup, you have to pair the two cylinders up according to the way the firing order is. In an LS firing order, you want 2 and 4 and 8 and 6 paired together, which that rotates the firing order so you have an even pulse coming down this tube here. And you can see which way the merge collector setup thing is right here. And come around here to the other side, and I've got them stood up according to the firing order, because we want 1 and 5 here and 3 and 7 paired up, so they're paired up correctly as far as the firing order goes. So that's the tri-Y deal. Secondary length is what I'm going to be testing. I've got a bunch of different lengths to try on it, so I'm going to do that. We'll get her fired up here and see where we're at. Got to put the carb hat back on and we'll be ready to go. All right, here we go. See how it goes. Okay, I finally got all the header testing done with the merge collector and the tri-Y. Learned quite a bit using the same size 1 7/8 primary tube is what this header started out as, and I did standard collector, different lengths, merge collector, and did it in the tri-Y with different length secondaries. So this is kind of where everything ended up. Let me move this board. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see, get the camera here. Let me stand this up a little better. Hopefully, let's see. Y'all can see it. Okay. This is kind of in the tri-Y setup with 1 7/8 tri-Y. The secondary length or size was 2 1/8, and the merge on the secondary collector was 2 1/2, and the primary tube was 27 inches. I started out with a 6-inch secondary tube. Max torque was 491 at 4,600 RPM. Max horsepower was 472 at 5,800 RPM. Average torque was 445. Average horsepower was 398. I went to an 8-inch secondary. Max torque was 483 at 4,500. Max horsepower was 481 at 6,000. And average torque was 456. Average horsepower was 402. I went to a 11-inch tube in the secondary. It made 484 max torque at 4,500. It made 468 horsepower at 5,800. Average torque was 449 and average horsepower was 391. Also, I want to let people know that there were some pulls that made better peak numbers as far as either torque or horsepower, but these are the pulls that had the best average torque. I wanted to use those as an example as far as, which ones, if a guy's looking for more horsepower up top, there's probably a better option in a little bit of changing some of this around. The 1 7/8 standard header, 34-inch tube with a 2 3/4 inch merge on it. At 4,600, it made 484. At 6,000, it made 470. The average torque was 444. The average horsepower was 404. And I tried a couple different lengths on this. This was the best setup for that. And I tried a 2 7/8 merge, and it was worse. The standard header, which I've shown in some of the earlier videos, 482 max torque at 4,600, 476 max horsepower at 6,100, average torque 447, and average horsepower 402. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as these headers go with that 1 7/8. Also, I have, let's see here. Okay, I have this board that I did. I'm running out of whiteboard area to show you things here. Okay, this is 1 7/8 tubes, which all these headers were, with the standard collector, merge collector, and the tri-Y.
At 3,500, these numbers on, let me set this down. These numbers here are important, but if you want to look and see what kind of what gains you picked up at the different RPMs, this is a lot more information. At 3,500, the standard collector made 423, and that's these pulls up here. The merge collector made 427, which was a gain of 4. The tri-Y header at 3,500 made 446, picked up 23 foot-pounds of torque. This is torque. At 4,000, the standard collector made 449. The merge collector made 452, which is a gain of 3. The tri-Y made 472, which is a gain of 23, which is a significant gain if you're looking for low-end torque. This is kind of strange here, and I've got to figure this out. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But anyway, this is, I'm giving you the information, so I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I'm just trying to show people all the differences. The standard collector made 480. The merge collector made 482. The tri-Y, oops, that's a plus, I'm sorry. The tri-Y made 483, which is a gain. Oh, no, that's actually a gain of, my mistake, a gain of, well, it is a gain of 3 over, sorry, it is a gain of 3 over the standard collector. Okay, that's what they're, now at 5,000, the standard collector made 479. The merge made 478, which we lost 1. And the tri-Y lost 4 at 5,000, which is, what I was talking about. It's a little odd that it did. I may be missing something, and I may stumble onto it as I keep doing these tests. And if I do, I can inform people. At 5,500, the standard collector made 452. The merge made 449, which it lost 3. And the tri-Y was a wash. It made 452. At 6,000, the standard collector made 417. The merge collector only made 409, which it lost 8. And the tri-Y made 422, which was a gain of 5. I don't really understand what happened here. I'm going to have to go back and try to figure out what happened here. But, that was a 34-inch tube. That's a 34-inch tube. These numbers are 8-inch secondaries, 2 1/8 secondary tubes with a 1 7/8 primary tube. Also, let me turn the camera back around here. I got some sheets here. Okay, just to kind of let you know a few other items here. I had, played around with the carburetor a little bit as I went along here, making a few minor changes to it. I had a couple of pulls that were in the I had one that was a 493 and a 491 torque with the merge collector. But I'd made a little carburetor change on it, but the average was down about 1 to 2 horsepower over what the best average I had up here. Well, it's actually, let's see, it was actually more than that. Average torque. Yes, the average torque was down from my average torque here. The one where it made a better peak number, it was down about 7 from what the average was with this setup right here. And, you know, I'd done a little bit of a carburetor change as far as adjusting on the carburetor a little bit. It wasn't a significant amount. I went back and double checked, made another pull, and, you know, the numbers are correct as far as that goes. I could probably tune a little bit here or there on this setup with the merge collector and the tri-Y and try to make them a little bit better. It's very interesting to see what these numbers do. I've got a bunch of graphs comparing this stuff here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to show a graph here. I'll post them at the end of the video so you can look at the graphs and put a little note at, you know, what setup it was, and you can kind of see what it does. But that's pretty much all of the 1 7/8" tube. I have a 1 3/4 to 1 7/8" step header that I'm going to do all these same tests with. So it should be pretty interesting. You know, I'm not trying, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to determine or, you know, influence anyone on what they choose for a header. I'm just giving you all the options of what happens with the numbers. You know, through all of these dyno pulls, the motor basically used the same amount of air. The manifold vacuum, once I figured out where I'd screwed up at as far as the manifold vacuum never really changed if I kept my sensor zeroed out every morning before I started. You know, the EGTs did change some with different header combinations with the same jetting, which is pretty interesting. You know, the plugs look great. The little bit of carburetor stuff I did really was more trying to help off idle, starting to pull more than anything. And I did finally kind of sort that out a little bit as far as the off idle pull, so the graph's a little bit smoother. But yeah, that's kind of where everything is as far as. I probably could have added some more secondary link to it, but it really, I mean, I've got tubes I can do that with, but the horsepower really started to tank on it. You know, max horsepower really went down, so, you know, the torque wasn't, you know, wasn't really tanking, but the horsepower was. I was trying to come up with something that had the best all-around power curve, and I think the 8-inch in the tri-Y is. One thing I would like to try at some point, and I just don't have all the stuff to do it. Instead of using a 2 1/8, I'd almost like to try a 2-inch secondary, and I may at some point try that and see how it works out. You know, just a standard old header, 1 7/8" straight tube is not a terrible header. The average, you know, through the whole RPM range, as far as torque goes, is not as good as the tri-Y. You know, max horsepower, the tri-Y did better at 6,000. This was at 6,100. You know, max torque, the standard header, 482, 483 was pretty much a wash, made pretty much the same horsepower, but the average through the RPM range, like I showed on the other board, there's areas where the tri-Y really shines, and it depends on what kind of racing you're doing, which header you should choose, what combination. Stand this back up here where you can see. You know, you can see here the tri-Y, you know, 3500, 4000, 4500 is all better. And, you know, for a street car that you're driving around, you want low end power, that's what I would choose, is a tri-Y header. Even, you know, up in this area, it's not bad. So that just gives y'all a lot of information as far as that header. I'm really curious to get the 1 3/4 to 1 7/8 step header going, so I can see what that does. I think it's even going to be better than this. You got comments, questions, you want to know a little more information about the header stuff, you know, let me know. Leave it in the comments. You know, I mentioned earlier I'm going to try to put some kind of you know, book together with information in it, probably. I'm still looking at that. I have so much information. I'm still actually looking at it. Let me just kind of give you an idea of what I've got up here. I mean, this is, you know, I got tons of dyno pulls, graphs, all these sheets here. Here is, you know, information from the first 2 dyno pulls or dyno sessions that I did with the headers. So I've got a lot of information here to sort through. I've done a bunch of different graphs with, you know, the different header combinations, so people, you know, can see the graphs, you know, what it's doing, where it's making the power, what's going on with it. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to try to put something together, so people, if they're interested, you know, they can get all this information. And that's just from the 1 7/8 straight tube. So I'm going to have at least that much for the step header, with all these combinations. And then at the end, I've got the 8-into-1, which I'm kind of stuck with what I can do with it as far as tube lengths and stuff, just because the constraints of making it fit on the motor. But we'll see how it does. I'm really curious on it. But yeah, leave some comments, and hopefully y'all are enjoying it. And, you know, some people learned some things from it. I've learned from it. I've tested a lot of header things, but I've never did all this back-to-back stuff on the same motor, and, you know, tried to look and see what happens with everything. So I'll post a bunch of these graphs at the end, and I will put the 2 different pulls, what the difference is and which header it was, and y'all can see that at the end. There'll probably be, I would say probably 6 or 8 graphs, since I've got all the dyno stuff done for this header, maybe more than that at the end. But yeah, just watch to the end. There'll be all the graphs at the end. So I appreciate everybody, and I'm going to start working this week on doing the other tests. I went through and done maintenance on the motor. It's got 60, 65 dyno pulls on it. It's what I did with these headers. I'm sure I'll probably at least have that much with the next set of headers. So hopefully everything works out good. hope you all enjoy this. It's been kind of fun for me. And leave a comment, questions, please. Have some questions. I enjoy interacting with the YouTubers out there. So leave a few quotes and questions, and I'll answer you back, and hopefully try to help some people with some header questions.